Some big AI news today. First and foremost, the Biden-Harris administration outlines coordinated approach to harness power of AI for the U.S. national security. And as you'll see in a minute, this is kind of a big deal, and it's real. There's already real results that are being shown as a result of U.S.'s focus on becoming the #1 AI power. So before they talked about this idea of taking AI and make sure that we deliver the safe, secure, and trustworthy development of AI, making sure it doesn't lead to discrimination and things like that. But it was kind of broad. It almost kind of seemed maybe they didn't know exactly what AI is and kind of like what effects it's going to have. It seemed a little bit downplayed. This one hits a little bit different. They start with the NSM. So this is kind of like this National Security Memorandum on Artificial Intelligence. So they're saying here the NSM directs the U.S. government to implement concrete and impactful steps to #1, ensure that the United States leads the world's development of safe, secure, and trustworthy AI. Notice kind of like the big, strong words that they're using, and I'll show you in just a second why this isn't just bold words. There's a lot behind this as well. And 2, harness cutting-edge AI technologies to advance the U.S. government's national security mission and advance international consensus and governance around AI. So I'm sure you can probably notice the tone changing, right? Because before they're like, oh, it's this cool new thing, and let's make sure it's kind of like it plays nice with people. It was kind of vague, fluffy sounding nice words. Like this is different. They're saying U.S. is going to be #1 in development. It's going to be a big part of national security. National security, amongst other things, means the military. It's power. It's kind of like what the governments do. Kind of, they try to survive. They try to not get brought down, right? If somebody's picking on you, you call 911 or whatever, right? You call the police. For governments back from Machiavellian days to now, a lot of this is, we'll say national security. It's power. It's basically how hard it is to push them around, how much influence they can exert. And so they're saying we're going to build the best AI, and that's going to be part of national security. That's a big deal. And #3, advance, international consensus. We're going to be the best, and we're going to tell others what to do. I mean, not in those words, obviously, but just notice kind of strong language here, right? They want to implement concrete and impactful steps. And the NSM is designed to galvanize. How often do you use that word, I wonder, galvanize in these briefings? Galvanize, if you're not aware, is to shock or excite somebody into taking action. They want to shock the government into taking action. They've been watching too many of my videos. I kind of have to use shocking in the title for this one, right? Because it's literally, they said it, not me. So they want to galvanize the federal government of the United States of America to have them adopt AI to advance the national security mission, including by ensuring that such adoption reflects democratic values and protects human rights, civil liberties, and privacy. So this whole thing to me reads a little bit like they're talking about some other country. They're not naming it, but they're saying we want to do everything that country isn't doing. We'll come back to that in just a second. And in addition to that, the NSM seeks to shape international norms around AI use to reflect those same democratic values and directs actions to track and counter adversary development and use of AI for their own national security purposes. So again, to summarize, they're saying we're going to build the best AI. We're going to use it to gain and sustain our power. We're going to tell other, friendly nations and everybody else how this AI, how this technology should be governed. And countries that don't have democratic values, right? These adversary development of AIs, like we don't want those countries using it for their national security purposes. This, to me, kind of obviously, they're talking about China specifically to a large degree. And I'll show you in a second what just happened, kind of separate from this, but probably this is timed with the other thing that kind of, to me, it makes sense why this like really strong language is being used now. And so in order to do all the things that they've kind of outlined above, #1, they're saying, well, we're going to need a lot of chips. NVIDIA chips go brr, right? So they've signed the CHIPS Act, which put a lot of money towards the development of chips for US, AI technology. And also, I believe there were restrictions I believe it was that CHIP Act that actually made the restrictions of, certain powerful NVIDIA technology being exported to China. There's a lot of that created a bit of a black market. So it's still kind of getting in there, but that's something that they're kind of cracking down on, right? So they don't want China to have unrestricted access to the best and the most powerful NVIDIA chips or any chips capable of running advanced AI, of training and doing inference, etc. And so they're saying that the CHIPS Act made major investments in our capacity to manufacture leading-edge semiconductors. Again, as you see in a second, this is true. The NSM directs actions to improve the security and diversity of our chip supply chains and to ensure that as the United States supports the development of the next generation of government supercomputers and other emerging technology, we do so with AI in mind. You notice people are now awake to the fact oh, AI is going to be kind of a big deal. If you're unaware, the supply chain, the global supply chain of these advanced AI chips was probably the least diverse sort of manufacturing thing we have on the planet, and also not very secure. We'll come back to that. Our competitors want to upend U.S. AI leadership and have employed economic and technological espionage in efforts to steal U.S. technology. This NSM makes collection on our competitors' operations against our AI sector a top-tier intelligence priority and directs relevant U.S. government entities to provide AI developers with the timely cybersecurity and counterintelligence information necessary to keep their inventions secure. So for those that may be not aware, with certain sort of U.S. interests, as they call them, there's a bit of a blurred line between where sort of the companies that are trying to make a profit, where they end, and kind of where the U.S. government and the military and the various cybersecurity and counterintelligence, whatever agencies, where they start. There's kind of this blurring. So basically now, just like in the past we've had with oil, if somebody tries to come in and interfere with the supply of oil, that's part of the U.S. sort of interests, part of their asset of the supply chain or whatever. Well, a lot of the U.S. government, a lot of those entities might get involved. The intelligence agencies, potentially the military, etc. They're saying so protecting against espionage will now be a top-tier intelligence priority, and they're going to provide AI developers with the timely cybersecurity and counterintelligence information necessary. So again, they're pouring money into this, pouring billions of dollars into developing supply chains. And now they're saying we're also going to be giving them the top tier, intelligence, whatever, potentially military. I mean, they're not saying that, but they're saying it's a top tier priority. And of course, for the United States to benefit maximally from AI, Americans must know that they can trust these systems to perform safely and reliably. And so the NSM formally designates the AI Safety Institute as the U.S. industry's primary port of contact in the U.S. government, one staffed by technical experts who understand this quickly evolving technology. It also lays out our strengthened and streamlined mechanism for the AI Safety Institute to partner with national security agencies, including the intelligence community, the Department of Defense, and the Department of Energy. So there's this thing called NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology. So the idea is to kind of promote U.S. innovation and industrial competitiveness. And so it sounds like, if I'm understanding this correctly, the U.S. AI Safety Institute, which is housed within the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, that is the kind of organization that they're officially designating as the primary port of contact in the U.S. government. It's going to be staffed by technical experts who understand this quickly evolving technology. And the NSM doubles down on the National AI Research Resource, the pilot for which is already underway to ensure that researchers at universities, from civil society, and in small businesses can conduct technically meaningful AI research. AI is moving too fast and is too complex for us to rely exclusively on a small cohort of large firms. We need to empower and learn from a full range of talented individuals and institutions who care about making AI safe, secure, and trustworthy. And also the NSM directs the National Economic Council to coordinate an economic assessment of the relative competitive advantage of the United States private sector AI ecosystem. So we're looking at it from how to make sure we have the AI chips that we need, how to, we have our very own agency that's kind of going to help with the development of AI, that's going to start setting certain standards and giving help to make sure that we're competitive. And not only that, but we're also providing these economic assessments to make sure that we're competitive in this field. So they continued that the NSM we're not just saying that we want to use it for national security effectively, but it's absolutely, we have to make sure that we do so in ways that align with the democratic values. Certainly, as I said before on this channel, probably a million times, some sort of a tyrannical rule with AGI, some sort of a super intelligence, basically a tyrant to enable with some sort of advanced AI is maybe one of the scariest things that we can imagine. And the NSM directs the creation of a framework to advance AI governance and risk management in national security, which is being published today alongside this NSM. Interestingly, they mention here that there's a lot of these nations that signed the political declaration on the military use of AI and autonomy, right? That talks about military AI capabilities, and the UN General Assembly resolution on AI, which interestingly included People's Republic of China as a co-sponsor. So interestingly, this also came out today. There's Bloomberg saying the TSMC's Arizona chip production yields surpassed Taiwan's in win for U.S. push. So TSMC is one of the biggest producers of these AI chips in the world. So TSMC is Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. It produces 90% of the world's most advanced semiconductor chips. It's sometimes called the most important company in the world and accounted for almost 70% of the global foundry revenue. So it's kind of a big deal. Now, of course, China wants Taiwan and wants Taiwan to be part of China. And TSMC, as you can see, it's kind of like the shield. It's sometimes referred to as the Silicon Shield because since they produce such a crucial resource for the entire world, these like chips produce 90% of them for the entire world's chips. That certainly protects them from some of the China's sort of ambitions. But still, it has a lot of people concerned because China is just a short boat ride away, and a lot of people were worried that a war may break out over these production facilities, over these companies. And so part of that CHIPS Act was this kind of big push to try to get, as they said, like a more secure and diverse global supply chain or a supply chain for the United States. And so a lot of the TSMC, they were trying to rebuild some of that production facilities here, in fact, in Arizona. And it looks like, again, as of today, it looks like production yield in Arizona are 4 percentage points higher, right? Surpassing Taiwan. One thing that I found quite hilarious, honestly, is when they were just starting out, there was a few news articles that were put out about how the sort of the American workers working in Arizona, there was a bit of a culture shock for them because they had to work with the sort of the Taiwanese managers and the people that ran those factories, those foundries. So there was a bit of a culture shock because, you know, how they interact in those facilities is different than apparently how we interact here in the United States. I think there was like a little memo that the sort of the Taiwanese side of it, they distributing amongst the management staff. They're like, American workers do not like to be threatened. They do not like to be treated harshly. Like it's all these like do not abuse the American workers, please. Here's from Tom's Hardware. They're saying that one big problem is that the TSMC has been, they've been trying to do things the Taiwanese way, even in the US. In Taiwan, TSMC is known for extremely rigorous working conditions, including 12-hour workdays that extend into the weekends and calling employees into work in the middle of the night for emergencies. Then also, the managers are known for harsh treatments and threaten workers with being fired for relatively minor failures. And TSMC quickly learned that such practices will not work in the US. But whatever the case, it's seemingly it's working. The production in Arizona are 4 percentage points higher. As they say here, this project was initially dogged by delays and worker strife. So apparently workers don't like to be threatened. That's interesting. Thought that was entertaining. Hit the thumbs up button. If you don't, I'm going to come over there. In June 2024, year of our Lord, Leopold Aschenbrenner wrote his situational awareness paper, where he kind of more or less precisely called it. He was saying by the end of the decade, they will be smarter than you or I, these super intelligent machines. He's saying we will have super intelligence in the truest sense of the word. He continues, so that part hasn't come true yet, but he's saying along the way, national security forces not seen in half a century will be unleashed. I like that word, unleashed. And before long, the project will be on. The project as in, the Manhattan Project was the project, So there's going to be a similar sort of magnitude and focus on the AI technology as there was on the development of the nuclear bomb. If we're lucky, we'll be in an all-out race with the CCP, China. If we're unlucky, an all-out war. So we covered that paper in June 10th, 2024. Thank you, everyone that watched it. And one thing that I said at the beginning about what Leopold Aschenbrenner was saying is, to me, he was like the only person that was making kind of any sense in terms of predicting what was about to happen. While some people were predicting, some sort of a utopia, space communism, if you will, everybody living with an everything forever bag of sorts, AGI providing for all, other people envisioning some sort of a Terminator-like scenario. And my point was always been, before we get there, if we get there, we have a million things to figure out. And there's a lot of governments, there's a lot of powers that be, if you will, that aren't just going to chill and hang out and wait for everything to develop. If you believe that we're developing super intelligence, machines capable of doing stuff that human minds can't comprehend, then there's going to be a lot of people out there that are not going to be chill about it. Nations fought in various ways, hot wars, cold wars, economic wars, right? Sort of diplomatic, Machiavellian kind of influence wars, right? Over land and influence and oil, even spices and stuff like that at some point. This thing that's emerging just makes everything else pale in comparison. Back then when the White House was saying, oh, let's make sure this AI thing that's coming out, let's make sure, the human resource departments don't use it for naughty things, to discriminate, right? They were kind of missing the point. This is more in line with, I think, what you expect when you oh, that's what's coming, right? So when they're saying, the NSM, this thing is designed to galvanize the federal government, to shock the federal government into adoption of AI for the national security, that to me signals that, okay, they're getting it. They're getting it, right? Here's an excerpt from Mr. Leopold Aschenbrenner, Situational Awareness. Everyone is now talking about AI, but few have the faintest glimmer of what is about to hit them. NVIDIA analysts still think 2024 might be close to the peak. By the way, none of this is financial advice. I have no idea where the price is going to go of any of these stocks, but here where they're saying that any sort of effort to steal US technology will be a top tier intelligence priority, and they're going to provide, the US AI developers with cybersecurity and counterintelligence information. That kind of means, if you mess with somebody like NVIDIA, if you try to sneak in there and try to steal some plans or whatever, you might disappear and no one is going to hear from you ever again, right? So Leopold continues, mainstream pundits are stuck on the willful blindness of it's just pretending the next word. We've seen a lot of that. Oh, AI is it's BS. Don't worry about it. Right? Here's AI is snake oil, right? So either this guy is right and this whole thing is just hype, it's just BS, AI is it's nothing, which would mean that the entire White House and the US federal government and all the intelligence agencies and all the military agencies and NIST and all the various experts and all the people that are taking part of this massive land rush to make sure that US is the #1 AI superpower in the world. Billions of dollars spent getting this Arizona plant to run, right? Employees threatened, right? The intelligence community, the Department of Defense, the Department of Energy, National Economic Council, all of them are just foolish enough to fall for this snake oil AI. Or maybe these people don't know what they're talking about, or they're paid to push some agenda out there for whatever reason. But as Leopold says, before long, the world will wake up. And then he continues to outline what's going to happen. We've covered this in the previous video, but I've referred to it a few other times up until now because it's beginning to feel like the future foretold. This was before Microsoft rebooted that 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant. This was before a lot of there's some big projects that have been announced that have to do with, various GPUs and data centers and power build outs. I think it was before the ex-NSA director joined the OpenAI's board. I think this was before that. And then he's saying as the race to AGI intensifies, the national security state will get involved. He's saying here, it is a delusion of those who have unconsciously internalized our brief respite from history that will not summon more primordial forces. He writes well. I like how he writes. It's fun to read. Like many scientists before us, the great minds of San Francisco hope that they can control the destiny of the demon they are birthing. Wow. I mean, that's good, right? Right now, they still can, for they are among the few with situational awareness, right? Some idea what's about to happen, who understand what they are building. But in the next few years, the world will wake up. So too will the national security state. History will make a triumphant return. And history, he means think Cold War, think massive projects like the Manhattan Project backed by, the full power and resources of a government the size of US, various security apparatus moving covertly to try to wield power, etc. So I don't know. What do you think? I'm kind of patting myself in the back here, because this was kind of like what I was thinking about. And then Leopold, and all credit goes to him because he wrote it in such a clear way, in such a well laid out way. And since he was an actual researcher from OpenAI, he actually walks you through kind of like the development, the growth, the improvements that are happening, and has a timeline for when we're going to reach certain thresholds. And this is that famous picture, you probably saw it. So it's kind of this idea that at some point, like 2027 or thereabouts, we're going to see automated AI research. And again, if you've been watching this channel, this isn't a surprise, but we've seen a lot of sort of beginning of examples of literally this since this paper got published, and even a little bit before that. But, the OpenAI O1 model, automated autonomous machine learning research, we're seeing examples of that. There are benchmarks on that already. So, we might be even closer to this. That's the one thing that even the experts that really know what they're talking about sometimes tend to project too far, kind of think it's further down the road than we even expect. We might be closer to this automated AI research than even 2027. At that point, what would happen is what Leopold calls the intelligence explosion. As smart AI is capable of improving its own intelligence, of improving itself, it's also improving its ability to improve itself, so to speak. It's a kind of a recursive, compounding intelligence improvement. And of course, the country that leads the world's development of safe, secure, country that leads the world in the development of AI will win all the marbles, let's say. Let me know what you think in the comments. My name is Wes Roth. If you made this far, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.